Yes, we are live.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to yet another webinar at Positivity. My name is Annapurna. I'm a counseling psychologist and psychotherapist. And today we'll be talking about caregiving and how not to lose ourselves on the process of caregiving. Before we start on today's topic, I would like to briefly introduce our website, Positivity. So, Positivity is a mental health uh, platform. It's a Singapore headquartered organization where we want to make mental health accessible for everyone, approachable, affordable, and accessible for all of us. Okay, so positivity here we try to to get individuals the right mental health experts, and also we create mental health awareness programs um, on positivity. So, okay, before we start our today's topic, which is caregiving without losing ourselves, I would like to share a story, which is basically about caregiving. So I do have slides and presentation as well. So our tech expert would be sharing the slides. So as I said, today's topic is caregiving without losing ourselves. So caregiving, um, yeah, like I said, the story. The story. Imagine, I want you guys to imagine a situation of a woman in her late 30s who works as well as is responsible for of her house, of her kids, of her parents. So this woman in her late 30s wake up early, does household chores, go to her workplace, uh, you know, holds meetings, conducts analysis at work, comes back home, and then take care of her family, take care of her responsibilities, and also take care of her parents. During work, she often thinks about her father's health, if he has taken his daily medications or he has skipped again. During meetings, she thinks about what if the blood report that was supposed to come next week of her mother's has something negative. She worries about that. At home, she often thinks about if she was not very focused at her job. At her job, she thinks about what if I'm not doing enough for my parents. And at night, this woman lays awake without, you know, proper sleep and often thinks she's doing enough in her life. So, my friends, this story can be fictional, but for most of us, it's a reality. This is what caregiving is. Caregiving is one of the most uh, beautiful and meaningful thing that you can do to your parents, but it's also very emotionally demanding. And today, we would talk about the invisible side, the other side of caregiving. Okay, let's start with our slides. So let's talk about the basic of what caregiving is. For most of us, it's a if you talk about a layman word, caregiving could really be like taking care of anyone who needs your care. In today's webinar, we'll be talking about caregiving to our aging parents. So when it comes to caregiving our aging parents, we often think about it's maybe about the medications, about the upcoming appointments, about the emotional support, the physical support, the financial support. But caregiving is not something that ends at certain starts at certain time and ends at certain time. It's actually something that goes on beyond the clock, beyond 24 hours. It's something that does not stop. Okay, it's not just coordinating with medical bills and appointments and managing your uh, uh, you know aging parents as well as your household. It's also managing yourself within, making yourself fit enough to play the role of a caregiver. In many ways, caregiving continues. Like I said, it continues even if you are not physically present. Like I said in the example of the story we began with, even if this this woman was not at home, she constantly had the idea, she constantly had thoughts in her head about caregiving, about her family, about her parents, about her mom, about her dad. So this is something that constantly uh, goes on. Now let's check out the other slide. Now, so we said that we would be talking about the invisible side of caregiving. So you by now know that caregiving is giving care to someone, irrespective of you are physically present at the moment or you are outside. So it could be your emotional support, moral support, physical support as well. But here is something that nobody talks about when it comes to caregiving. The first is the mental load. Okay, you would always constantly think if they have taken the medicine or not, because when it comes to old age, especially there are issues about forgetting, and sometimes there are cases where people who forget and take the medicine twice. And in during the old age, there are people when they become a little bit frustrating. Sometimes they would become naggy. But then these are all the signs of old age where you cannot really help. So you would always constantly have this thought if they have taken the medication. But if you sometimes it's like if you ask them if they have taken the medications, they would be like, "Why do you keep asking me? Why do you always keep doubting me?" But you ask them because you are constantly aware and constantly uh, you know just trying to make sure that your parents are taking the medication. For you it might just be a thought, but what is happening inside your body, it's becoming a mental load, it's a mental pressure. Okay, you would also think about what's up with the next appointment, or you know that the doctor would be on in down and you need to take the appointment, but what if there are limited seats? What if your mom doesn't get the seats, or what if you are late from the meeting and you go there and you are late? So these are things that are constantly playing on your head. What if something happens while I'm at work? Okay, these are the things that makes us the mental load, or the mental pressure that we are carrying. So, like I said before, that caregiving does not really end uh, like how our office jobs, ends at the clock. But here is something that you're always on. Your physical task might end for some time, like giving your parents a cold bath, or feeding them, or taking quick, runs for their errands. But the, the constant thought that I need to do this, I need to do that. Stress is something that is always on. Okay, these are the invisible side. These are the sides that rarely people talk about. Okay, and then the switch that you can never off. Okay? The responsibility, the work, and what others think about you. This is something that you cannot switch off. Now, in our culture, uh, there is a saying that I'm talking about specifically about Indian culture, but also you can see this in most Asian culture, which I mean those culture which has a collectivistic society, they would often tell a newly married couple to have kids, right? So if you might have heard either in yourself, or you might have heard someone else, you have heard people talk about to have kids so that that kid will become a support to their parents' old age. So in Hindi, it's a very popular phrase. It's called "budhapa ke sahare." Okay, that means support in your old age. Now, it's not wrong as a sense that it's a good thing that you are having children, and then children are supporting you at your old age, which is fine. But when we are talking about support, that means the society is having high expectations towards the children. Okay, and the children are aware. Now, the children who are now grown up, they are aware that they have this responsibility, and uh, there is a thing that you might be judged by others. You might be having this invisible competition with others, that you'll have to take good care of your parents because they have taken good care of you your entire life. Okay, they have nurtured you, they have fed you, they have uh, you know fulfilled your demands, your education. Basically, they have given you the life that you are living today. So if you think that way, then it's something that you're exerting a lot of pressure in your mind. So it's understandable, and it's also very much okay to feel this pressure. Now, do not try not to feel the guilt that they have done so much for me. What if I'm not able to do even half? So this webinar today, this topic is where we talk about how we need to first look at ourselves, and then we can proceed to taking care of others. Now let's see what's in the next slide. See, now when we talk about a caregiver's role, if you are a caregiver of your own aging parents, you are not just a caregiver, right? You wear many hats. You are an employee. You work. You are meeting deadlines. You're completing projects. You're handling major responsibilities. You're also a spouse and a parent. You're also somebody's husband. You're also somebody's wife. You also have to take care of their responsibilities, their demands. And also, you're somebody's parents. Just because you're taking care of your ailing parents or aging parents, that doesn't mean that you would ignore your children. So, this is again something that you are helping with. Apart from that, you're again a caregiver. You're caregiver for your aging parents. You are basically checking on their health, you're checking on their safety, their well being, and their responsibilities. But after all this, one thing that most of us fail to recognize is that you're also your individual self. And I want you guys to think about it, take a moment, re- remember it, and let it sink in, that you are an individual. You have your own needs, your own dreams, your own values, responsibilities, your limits. You are a human being and not a machine. So, yes, you are somebody's child. You need to take care of your aging parents. You're somebody's spouse, somebody's parents, some big company's employee. You are responsible for so many things, but you're also responsible for yourself. You cannot just go on about working so hard for everyone else and ignore your own limits, your own dreams, your own needs. And if you feel that you are being pulled from all directions, it's not a personal failure. It's actually the modern reality of today's caregiving, where the responsibility at our workplace have increased, responsibility as a parent, as a spouse, as an individual, as a human being merely existing has increased. And above all this, you're also a caregiver, 24-hour caregiver to your aging parents. Before we proceed, I really want all of us who are listening to this topic today, either you are attending us on this live Zoom or you are attending from YouTube, I want you to, pat your backs and tell that you're doing well and that you'll be doing well further. And for those of you who are not yet in the process of caregiving your aging parents, this is something that you cannot really ignore. Either your parents or your in laws, this is something that most of us, if not all, will have to, face. So it's good that we learn something new and be prepared on how to, you would be knowing how to take care of your parents. That is not something we are talking here. You would know how to take care about yourself, for yourself, and how to balance, basically balance yourself, your emotions, your exhaustion, your mental stability, your career, and also your personal. All right. Um, can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. This is something that you might question yourself. Why caregiving is so exhausting? If you can see the image, there are four quadrants, and number one is physical. First is traveling to appointments with daily tasks, managing emergencies. So, when you're traveling to your parents' appointments, so obviously you cannot send them alone. You have to go with them. You either taking a day off your work, or you're choosing a day where you do not have work, but there are daily tasks that you cannot skip, like taking care of your children, cooking, cleaning, or maybe taking a bath or doing laundry, and also handling emergency situations like taking them for the appointment. Uh, if it's a long journey, then getting a vehicle, or if making sure that your parents are comfortable in the car behind, and the mental pressure, which is the constant planning, organizing things, when to go, uh, what to do, the decision making, the problem solving. Uh, these are something that most people would just skip, but only one person who is really into the role of a caregiver would really understand how it feels when we talk about simple decisions. Because one simple decision, like, let's not take my mom today, let's take her next weekend. Okay, this simple decision can give you a lot of anxiety, because what if something major happens in between this few days? Okay, or if something does go wrong, maybe a slight let's say um, degrade in her or his, your parents' health, would make you feel as if it was your responsibility. You would It would make you feel guilty now. So these are the mental pressure. Okay, like you're constantly worrying about their health, and you're witnessing their struggles. They're not able to now chew properly, like how they used to before. They're not able to move like they used to before. And what happens with most of the aging parents, if you have not seen them, I would like to give you a brief, you know, imagination. What happens to most aging parents is like most of them, if they are not very weak physically, at least they're never very weak mentally. Okay? So they, in their mind, they're always healthy. They're always thinking that they can do this, they can do that, they can go, and maybe like how they used to do earlier, wash their own clothes, maybe uh, get the, you know. So these, I'll talk about what I'm seeing in these days. So this is the season of mangoes, right? So earlier they would just go and get the mangoes from the tree by themselves. But now, if this person is, aging, they're old enough, really can't go down the below the mango tree and climb. So that is something that you cannot think about, but cannot even throw a stick or a stone or let the mangoes fall. But in their mind, they're still young and they would think that I can go and do this. So they behave like children. Okay, like those children where you cannot really think about. They would just make you feel very busy, because they would always think about, I need to do this, do that, and you have to calm them down in the most positive way, in the most uh, empowering way, that you'll do the thing for them. Also, you have to keep reminding them that they are not weak, because this is something that they would not want to hear. So what I'm trying to say here is, these are the small decisions that you'll have to think. What you'll also have to think before you speak to your aging parents, because at that age, when they are aging, why did I use the term children? Because at that time, when they are, becoming old, when they are aging, when they are, becoming weak, they do not easily understand or try to understand things. They would easily, pout at you. They would easily, uh, get offended sometimes. Okay. So it becomes your responsibility to see their well being, see their mental as well as their emotional well being also. Okay. Now, physical tasks can be completed, mental tasks can be scheduled. Okay. But emotional burden, like worrying, witnessing your father who was once very active, now simply walking a few steps and again being back to his bed. These things, the way that you are carrying responsibility, these are something that is very difficult to remove from your mind. If you see your mom or your dad being in a situation where you did not want them to see like that, so you would think about it in your mind, even when you go to bed, even when you are working, you would eventually think about how your parents have gotten old, how energetic, how uh, you know active they were once when you were young, and how suddenly you would feel how quickly things have turned, and how your ever active dad is now actually taking rest, how your mom is so weak that she would need your help to even comb her hair and then tie a bun. So, caregiving, like I said, is not something that you can do very quickly. You have to take things slow. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, it's a lifelong journey. It's a, if you take prolonged stress, because the burden is there, right? These thoughts that is coming to your mind, that is giving you anxiety, that is giving you stress. And if these prolonged stress you carry, they are eventually going to make you feel exhausted. Not because you are weak, but because, you have been carrying these thoughts for a longest time, and these are eroding you from inside. I hope I'm able to clear this. But yeah, these are something that is most of us are currently going through or will be going through at one point of time. Okay, let's have the next slide. Okay. Why am I so tired? I know that I have to take care of my aging parents. It's my responsibility. But why do I feel so tired? If you also think this, then I think this would be beneficial for you. Sometimes tired is not just physical fatigue, and it's more than physical fatigue. It's something that is coming from within. Caregivers experience multiple forms of emotions, multiple forms of exhaustion that sleep or rest alone cannot resolve. Number one is emotional fatigue. Constantly supporting someone else's emotional needs gradually depletes your own reserves. That means if you're constantly taking care of others' emotions, your own emotions get ignored. Your own emotions like fear, anger, sadness, you would just swallow them and continue taking care of others' emotions. Then comes decision fatigue. So these situations are high stake, right? High stress, high stakes. You'll have to repeatedly take decisions where you feel like pulling all your hair sometimes, but you have to take appropriate, well enough decisions. Repeated problem solving, high stakes choices, your mental energy, your mental battery eventually gets down over time because the constant uh, game that you have to play, the roles that you have to play, the role of a decision taker, of someone who's constantly solving problems. When I'm talking solving problems, I'm not talking about some rocket science problem. It could be very small problems, like for example, sometimes your aging mom is not able to, for example, not eat with her hands because her joints are paining. Now you have to think about giving her a spoon, but spoon is not something that she's comfortable with. Now you'll have to think about that. Yes, you can feed her, but what if you're not there? Then you think, if you're okay to hire a part-time support who can feed or at least do her chores. But then again, you have to think if this person is going to be trustworthy. You also have to think twice before leaving the house. uh, before leaving your parents behind and going outside. Sometimes your partner, your children would want to play outside, to go outside, especially your children. You do not want to break their hearts, but you also cannot leave the house because you have to make the tough choice of either choosing your children or your parents. And most of the times, you end up choosing your parents because they are really old and they cannot uh, move. And I'm not saying that choosing one or either is bad. This is something. This is a fatigue that this is a problem solving. These might seem very petty to you if you have not been going through, but these are the things that can actually affect. All right. There is again something called as compassion fatigue. Now, if you have not been in that position where you have had prolonged compassion for someone, you may not understand this. But when we are talking about caregiving, you you, there is your capacity to feel empathy eventually it gets reduced. Okay, it's like a protective response. It's not a personal failing. Why am I saying? Okay, let's give you a very example, a very common example, but also sensitive at the same time. When you are on daily basis seeing your aging parents suffering a lot, and you are doing your best, but they are becoming old. They're also it's not they are moving. They are still they are becoming slow in things. And then you get a call from your old friend who's also saying that how she or he is very um, tired and exhausted, feel tired, and because their parents are also not doing well. You understand the situation, you sympathize, but the empathy somewhere would be reduced. Why? Because you yourself are dealing with that for a long, long time. Okay? Now, this sentence might bounce over for those who have not have prolonged compassion, prolonged empathy for someone already, so that you feel less empathetic towards the others case who might have similar uh, issues like you. And this is not exactly a failing, okay? This is something, it's a response because you as an individual can only do this. Your limit was this. You cannot add one more empathetic layer or empathetic, um, you know, foundation to your already uh, filled mind. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is something very, very important, something we call as anticipatory grief. Anticipatory grief is grief that you anticipate. Anticipate is something that you are thinking about. What if something happens in the future? Okay. So today, you would see that your parents are still uh, doing fairly okay. They are still able to do their uh, own daily work, like taking a bath, using the toilet, eating their own food, and sometimes even chatting with you well enough, going out and taking a nice sun bath, or even sometimes uh, doing a little bit of gardening here in your backyard. But seeing them old, seeing them suffering, you might have something called as anticipatory grief. You might think, what if tomorrow they are not feeling well enough? What if tomorrow the memory fades? What if they don't remember me anymore? What if they're not able to do the things they are doing now? You might have a fear in your mind. You might ask yourself, will I be able to see that? Will I be able to see my parents, see my dad, see my mom forgetting things so much, seeing their independence have completely gone, how they would be completely dependent on yourself. Sometimes to the extent of going to the toilet without your help, they cannot do it. Sometimes they'll have to take sponge bath um, due to their growing age or sickness. So these are something that you would anticipate, okay? And even when these things are not there, people, especially in caregiving, they anticipate things. These are actually very normal feelings, but they deserve acknowledgement and someone to talk to. And also, mixed emotions are very normal. So, yes, you do love your parents, gratitude, you are grateful for them. But sometimes you also feel sad, sad that you are stuck here. And I want all of you to take this very sensitively and calmly rather than, being very offensive at the moment. That sadness and worry is something that would come even though you love your parents or you're grateful to them. You might feel frustrated. That why am I the one who's doing this? Why am I the one who's juggling between work, children, husband, and work? I mean, your caregiving. There would be anger because sometimes the old people they do not listen to you. They would do the same things again and again. Sometimes you also feel relief when your mom is sleeping. And then there is guilt. Why did I even think like that? Why did I shout at her? Okay, why did I shout on my mom, on my dad when this is something, this is the bare minimum that I can do for them as compared to what they have done to my life. So these are mixed emotions and these are normal. Okay? These are not something that you should be ashamed of. And it's very uh, okay to feel because caregiving is complex and the mixed emotions, the mixed feelings are a natural part of this experience. And like I said, caregiving to your old parents, to your aging parents is very meaningful, but it's emotionally very demanding. Thoughts like frustration, frustration, emotions like frustration, anger, sadness, worry, these are the things that you feel, you cannot speak out for others. What if someone judge you? But these are something that you are facing or will be facing tomorrow. And it's okay. I want you people to know that it's okay. And that does not mean that you do not love them. That does not mean that you're not grateful for all the work that they have done in your life. Okay, let's check the next slide. So, like I was saying about the mixed emotions, here are an example of the common emotions caregivers experience. So, love and gratitude, definitely, you are deeply affectionate, deeply appreciate your parents. Uh, you know, your for them, you have become the person you are today. But then there is also sadness because over the time, when you see your active parent on bed or degrading physically, mentally, there is a blanket of sadness over you and you cannot really understand sometimes why. And even if you want to move on, you do not feel like moving on. And then there is worry what lies in the future? What would happen after they are gone? What would happen if something emergency happens? So these are fear and that constantly, surrounds a caregiver. Also, frustration and anger. These are natural responses to stress, exhaustion, and difficult circumstances. And there is helplessness. Sometimes, even if you try your best, you're letting them visit the best doctor in the town. The medications are slow. You feel you're not doing enough. You feel helpless. You cannot cry to others because then it would be like uh, sometimes society gives you a pressure like you'll have to do this. You are doing this. But then there is helplessness surrounding you, and you feel too bad thinking that you are thinking that this is frustrating. And even in this whole while, you feel like you need something for yourself, taking out one day out, maybe hanging out with your old friends or giving you a nice spa or a haircut. That time when you are away doing all these things for yourself, you feel the guilt. How I actually put forward my own need rather than their need. If they need me now, is it the right thing that I have paid attention to myself, my needs, rather than them? So these are types of guilt that would occasionally visit you, sometimes haunt you even when you are in the journey of caregiving. That doesn't make you bad, or that doesn't make you feel that you are a bad child. This makes you very much human. And these are why are we speaking about this today? We are speaking about this because it's not just you who's facing. It's the majority of people who are caregiving and juggling in their own personal life. So this is very human. And the fact that we are talking about mental health here at Positivity, this is another thing that people need to be aware of. Caregiving exhaustion, and that we are not able to take care, how we are losing focus from ourselves. Okay, let's check the next slide. So I've been talking about the guilt, right? Now here is something we would dramatically call it as a guilt trap. So caregivers often hold themselves to impossible standards. Okay, these thoughts may feel familiar. I should be doing more. These things come, you start comparing yourself with, uh, with others. Let's say XYZ have taken their parents to another major city and they are being treated in this huge super specialty hospital. But my salary is not enough. My salary is not enough that I can afford my parents to go to a super specialty or let alone that big city. I should have done well. I should be doing more. This is something you feel. You might feel that today she's not able to walk properly. Maybe I should have taken her to that hospital a few months ago. What if that was better idea? Then again, you'd also feel that I should not feel frustrated. Why am I feeling frustrated taking care of my own parents who have given their entire life for me? They have sacrificed so much for me. Am I not able to just attend their needs? And then comes and also the society's expectation because you are supposed to be a good child and a good child should never complain. These are thoughts that one or another day would pop up in a mind of a caregiver. You sometimes, out of frustration, you end up speaking rudely to your uh, parents, which is very normal because we do that with our families in day-to-day life, with our family, with our partner, even sometimes with our friends. But when it comes to caregiving parents, if you speak something very bad, or let's say not very bad, but maybe something out of anger in the morning, like why don't you take your breakfast on time, and you're actually busy to go to work, and then you go to work and you're not able to focus at work because you guilty about why did you say such words to your parents early in the morning. They have done so much for me. Why did I say that? And these kind of thoughts, this is what we call it as a guilt trap. It traps you, you know, you feel guilty. But the truth is, maybe your parents have completely ignored that and they are actually moving on from that breakfast incident to something else. But as a caregiver, you are still stuck in that guilt trap until you meet them again. So the entire day at your work, you feel, uh, guilty. You feel helpless. You feel as if you are not doing enough. Okay, let's check the next slide. Hmm, sorry. So two truths can exist together. You can love your parents and you can feel exhausted by caregiving at the same time. You can be grateful and you can be overwhelmed with their demands at the same time. And if you're aware of caregiving, if you have seen yourself or your parents or your grandparents, um, taking care of their parents. So if you've seen your parents taking care of your grandparents, you know that your grandparents, they are demanding. They can be demanding. And sometimes it can get overwhelming. Not that you're not grateful, but sometimes they would say things like, I've been telling you to do this for me, you don't give me time only. But the truth is, you gave time. They know it, but then it comes to you as if they are complaining or they're never ending demands. So, these two truths can coexist together. They can coexist. You feel like you want to help more, but sometimes you feel you need help. So, these are things that, these experiences are honest reality for so many caregivers. Okay, let's move on. Exhaustion is not a sign of failure. Why? Because exhaustion is not a proof that you don't care enough. It is something, it's an information that deserves to be heard. That means your body is sending you signal that look at yourself. You're exhausted. You're feeling exhaustion not because you're not a good child for your parents. You're feeling exhaustion because your body needs support. Hmm? Because your body needs adjustment, it needs rest. It's not because you are failing as a child or as a daughter or a son. See, all of us have some resources in life, and your responsibility sometimes can exceed those resources. Resources can be mental resources, physical resources, even financial resources like money or uh, FDs, all those health insurance, etc. And your responsibilities are much more. You have to look maybe your house mortgage, your car, EMI, your children's school tuitions, your let's say everyday daily expenses, plus your parents' medication, hospital bills, their responsibility, their daily needs. This is something that you have been taking care of. So your resources are less. I'm talking about financial resources at the moment. The resources are less, but your responsibilities are huge. Okay. So these are things that you carry on with you for way too long. It does not just end in a few weeks or few months. Sometimes it goes on for years. Sometimes your parents, they are slowly getting better, or like let's say getting better as in like uh, ailing, or let's say becoming little stable, but it's still slow because at the some point human bodies after a age would not perform very well physically. The medications also does not really um, work very fast. Taking care of all these things from the moment you wake up to you go to bed, and even if you sleep, in your sleep also, or before your sleep, you prepare a mental uh, timetable of what to do tomorrow. And during your sleep also, you might not get good sleep because you would wake up in the middle of the night in sweats, having a nightmare, or just too tired to feel sleepy. Because sometimes, if you're too tired, you don't really feel sleepy. Sometimes, caregivers also do complain of having insomnia. Insomnia, either because of too much of physical fatigue or because of too much of mental overthinking or load that we discussed a few slides ago. Your body and mind also need recovery. And this is the reason why I say that exhaustion is not a sign of failure that you are not a good child, you're not a good son or daughter. It's actually a sign that your body needs help or it needs recovery. Okay? All right. Um, okay, next slide, please. What happens if you ignore your own needs? So, when caregivers continuously neglect themselves, the toll is real and it's actually something that most of us ignore. It, leave me, I'll be fine. This is something that you'll hear most caregivers talking about. Eventually, they have burnout. What is burnout? Caregiving burnout is a separate topic. But yes, what I want to say that it's emotional and physical exhaustion, and you feel you cannot do it anymore. At some time, you'll not even feel like doing your basic things like taking a bath because you are exhausted to a point where it's that's the limit. There's nothing further. That is what burnout. Then there comes anxiety and depression. All these anticipatory grief that I was talking about is basically anxiety. So that would give you anxiety. What if situation, right? So chronic stress, it can deepen your mental anxiety. Okay, it can also give you depression. Seeing your, like I've been talking about, seeing your parents this week on bed, not able to do basic things, can give you depression. And if you do not take care of your own needs, this would eventually end up being serious mental health challenge for you as well. I was talking about insomnia. So there would be sleep difficulties. All these worry, the overload mental, uh, you know, overthinking, they would disrupt your rest. You would not really rest even if you are resting or laying on bed. This would create a cycle of fatigue in yourself. And then when you're taking care of the entire world, you forget to take care of yourself. You let your, self take the toll. Like that cup of coffee in the morning where you prepared for yourself, but it got cold and then you left it. Sometimes you are eating cold meals because you are taking care of your, uh, you know, family as well as yourself. Okay, next. So we are trying to talk about balance. Okay, no, next slide. So how do we actually balance these things? How do we actually balance our career, personal life, and caregiving? Make priorities. You don't have to be perfect in just one field. Make your priorities straight. Prioritize things. If you have a meeting tomorrow, ask your partner to look after your parents. Okay. Also, give time for your children. Give time for your parents, children. Understand which one, if there is an emergency medical assistance needed, definitely your parents. If your parents are doing fine, you can move to yourself, your work, your personal needs, like going for a gynec visit yourself or going for a, let's say, much needed break for yourself. And communicate your needs. Communicate your needs with someone who understands. Could be your spouse, could be your siblings. You alone are not responsible, right? So your siblings can also help. Communicate your needs. Schedule personal time for yourself, either in the early morning before your parents wake up or late at night. I mean, not very late at night because you also need to take care of your sleep. Let's say after your parents go to bed because old people, or let's say The people who are taking medications generally are advised to sleep early. If they go to bed by 9, you can take an hour for yourself after you put your children to bed as well. During work, remember to set boundaries. Okay. Also at your personal life around your availability. If your, let's say, if your brother took care of your father for a month, and then the next month, even though you have already told him that you were busy, he would ask you to take care of your mom. Just let him know that, you know, I would definitely take care, but just give me 1 week because I will be busy at my office or this and that. That does not make you a bad person. It does not make you a bad child. What you're doing is you're setting boundaries, and your parents will also understand this because, after all, they were also somebody's children. Okay, they were also a caregiver at one point of their life. So this is something that you do not have to put it within yourself, and you can definitely communicate and also build a support network. When we talk about support network, there are also people who go for therapy, like group therapy for caregiving, caregivers, so that you know they can bond over and have something to share about and learn from each other. Next slide, please. If you have been in an air flight, you know what an oxygen mask cylinder is. You would hear the air hostess in the beginning of your journey to talk about if there is any emergency. First, take the oxygen mask on yourself and then help others. This principle applies to your giving caregiving also. First, take care of yourself. Then only you can take care of your parents. Self-care is not selfish, and I repeat this line, I think, so many times, even during my other webinars. It's very much necessary for yourself. So first, learn to take care of yourself, and then you are healthy enough, or you would be enough so that you can help other person. If you're yourself not taking care of you, or of your own needs, if you're weak, how are you going to take care of others? You'll have to be strong first, and then you'll be able to help anyone else. At this time, we're talking about when you're eating healthy, when you are being happy, only then you can, your radiance, your positivity will be from able to help your parents. Right? Okay. Next slide. Let's quickly go what is within your control and what is outside your control. Your effort, your intention is within your control. How you communicate your needs is within your control. Your boundaries, your limits are within your control. When you ask for help, when you are done, is within your control. But the progression of your parents aging or their illness is something that you're not under your control. What are other people's choices and responses is not under your control. Your past decisions that could have created something wrong is not under your control, right? The circumstances not under your control. And how much you can do alone similarly is not under your control. Next slide, please. I want you all to know that you are not alone. Your feelings are very valid. Rest is very necessary, and support is available. How what do I mean by support? Let's go to the next slide. Can we change the slide, please? Okay. When do we seek professional help? If you're feeling persistent sadness and you do not know why, if you're feeling constant anxiety, that you feel like your heart is constantly racing and you do not understand what is happening, you're already taking herbal tea, you're trying to make things right, but there is constant anxiety. What if something goes wrong? You're not able to sleep well, and that is making you feel tired, groggy, and then you do not end up being um, happy, and you feel like your head is going to divide into two pieces. And then there is constant burnout. There is also relationship strain between your partner and you, strain or a gap between your children or your other siblings or even your friends. If you feel that you have lost interest in your daily activities, like what you enjoyed before, if you have enjoyed, let's say, gardening, if you had enjoyed crocheting, playing cricket, or games, but now you do not feel happy doing those things. You feel like you're losing interest. And if there are feelings of hopelessness, I'm not enough, nothing will work. If you are feeling any of these or even more, feel free to go for professional support. And then you'll learn about coping strategies. You'll also learn about how to prevent further emotional exhaustion and how can you find professional support. So here at Positivity, we also offer, like I said in the beginning, we offer mental health support to anyone. It is very accessible on our platform. It is very affordable as well. So you go and find the right person. I'll be taking you through that. But before we end our session today, I want you all to leave with one question. A question that most of us ask during caregiving is, am I doing enough for my parents? Right? But I want you to take a different question. I want you to take, am I doing enough for myself? Am I being enough for myself so that I can help my parents? Okay? I'm giving you a new question and try to think about that from now on. Okay, so let's talk about first. I would like to ask my tech support, to share the slide of the Positivity website. So when I was talking about where you can find professional support, Positivity is also a site. It's a mental health platform where you can ask for support. You can simply type www.positivity.com or positivity.com, but remember that we do not have the I in Viti. So it's our signature, it's Positivity without an I. So here is a list of therapists you can find. There are therapists according to your needs. You can check out what are you currently needing. You can see on screen there is my profile, Annapurna Thakuria, and then there are my specializations, the field that I work on, basically anxiety, stress, um, addiction, as well as career guide. So you can see there are timings available and you can book. There are also packages available. So this is very simple, very accessible, and very much approachable as well. So thank you so much for joining this today on this weekend afternoon, being with here. And even though there was a little lagging on my side because of the uh, glitches, I'm very thankful to the tech support who are there, to give constant support and share the screen as well as. Thank you everyone who attended this webinar. I'm really grateful. Thank